Hello, everyone. Happy first Monday of Q4. I'm still wondering where the heck August went, but here we are. It is the first Monday of October. I am Angie Callen, and this is No More Mondays, the podcast where we believe you can have a thriving career or business and an amazing life. And I bring you guests who not only prove that fact, but have great resources and advice to help you do the same, live and work brilliantly. For all of you listening to this as a podcast, wherever you like to listen to your podcast, I do want to remind you that we go live every single Monday morning at 10 Mountain, noon Eastern. So if you want these conversations as fresh off the presses as you possibly can, that is where you should tune in. And I want to know where all my podcast people are. Product. I'm going to say I have too many P words going on. Product people, where are you? I mean, hopefully you're also podcast people because, hey, a podcast is a product. I have worked with a ton of product managers and other tech professionals over the years. So it was about time I brought a product expert to the show, which is why I am excited to welcome Michael Hirsch, founder of Break a Pencil Consulting, home of all professional development resources you need as a product manager and growing product leader in the tech world. Michael is a coach, a product coach and consultant, and he channels his experience and success as a product manager and product leader to help others lead with confidence, grow your career with confidence, and develop thoughtfully. Whether you're a product professional or you work in tech or you're just your random listener today, don't go away because Michael's got some good stuff that is applicable whether you're in product or not. So I encourage you to keep listening as we welcome to the show, Michael Hirsch. Michael, welcome to No More Mondays.
Thank you for having me, Angie.
You're welcome.
Quite an intro. Thank you.
Yeah, I pride myself on the resume writer in me cannot have great, I cannot not have great, little intros. Understood. And I find it sets the conversation off with a good tone because people are usually smiling by the end. So here we go. And speaking of the intro, I want to talk a little bit about Break a Pencil because from the minute we first talked, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this name. And I think for the business owners out there who are tuning in might find a little bit of inspiration and fun in how that name came to be. So how did you come up with it?
Yeah. So Break a Pencil is a nod to my father. He, when I was growing up, you're familiar with the saying break a leg, right? Like good luck. And it comes from the theater. And things like that. So, but he always thought like, well, break a leg, that doesn't seem right. So anytime my sisters or I were taking a test or had, some exam or some like important thing, he'd say, break a pencil. And so it was his way of wishing us luck. And so I've carried that tradition on with my kids. Anytime they're having a test, I say, break a pencil. And so I used it as my company name because it's sort of, I kind of a nod memory to my dad, but also B, because it's sort of my wish for all of my clients that working with me brings them knowledge, brings them good coaching and career advice, but also maybe a little bit of luck as well.
And maybe more approachable than break a leg consulting.
Yes, that could be a little bit more violent.
And or might suggest your audience is theater people instead of product people. And now we're getting into product market fit.
Yes.
I'm also curious, and I love it. So, Michael and I have had lots of conversations, so there's probably some insider stuff that'll come out here. But my dad was my high school math teacher. He was a math teacher for, I don't know if I ever told you this. My dad was a math teacher, and I say was because he's retired. He is still luckily on this earth. And so the past tense is more about past career than him. But he was a high school math teacher for 30 years and then spent 10 years as like an adjunct professor. And he was my math teacher in high school for 3 years. And my dad is like known for being a little intimidating, but also a super fun teacher who had the best dad jokes before dad jokes were ever coined. And like him saying something like, well, Ange, go break a pencil, totally would totally happen in my home, right? Not that exact phrase, but like, similar ridiculous statements. I get my horrible jokes and anecdotes and stories, honestly. Shout out to Super Floyd, because in my AP Calc class, when I was a senior, there were only 9 of us. One of my friends, Tim Leonardi, sat in the back with a notebook and wrote down all of the Floydisms. And then he and a friend who were in a graphic design class made my dad a t-shirt.
Oh, that's
that
funny.
had all the sayings on the back. So that's why I love the phrase break a pencil. There's my fun little story. And I know mom is listening. So now dad has to listen. Hi, mom and dad. Moving on. I am curious, Michael, for you, product management, I don't want to call it a traditional track, but it definitely falls within, there can be a clear progression in technology. And it's not always something that very naturally gives way to starting a business. So, how did Break a Pencil Consulting come to be? And how did you kind of take this leap?
Yeah, so after 20 plus years in a variety of different tech companies, in product management roles, whether as an individual contributing product manager or a product leader managing product managers, about a year and a half ago, as a result of a layoff, and a lot of my fellow product managers out there are feeling some of that pain right now, I decided to take a little time and reflect, and decided that I didn't want to now go back and get yet another product leadership
Mhm.
job in another big company. And I thought that it was time to maybe try and do something on my own. So I spent a little time figuring out, what do I like? What am I good at? Those kinds of things. And I realized that in all the years I've been a product manager, and even more specifically, managing product managers, what I've loved most is helping product managers become the best possible versions of themselves they can be. I love helping them just get better at the product management craft. I love that moment when they realize they've done something they didn't think they could accomplish. It's also kind of why I teach on the side as well. It's that same thing. So I decided that I was going to start my company, helping product managers become the best versions of themselves and into product leadership roles.
I find it so interesting that a lot of times you arrive at the point of entrepreneurship versus it being something that is like, oh, I'm going to go start a business in 5 years. I got to get myself ready for it. But
Yeah,
whether it's like pushed off the precipice or you arrive at this conclusion that's like, okay, now's the time for me to do this because it's the way I'm going to be able to work and use my strengths best.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely right.
And then sometimes you get that little nudge of
You
kind of
know,
like, I don't wanna say not having a choice because you did, you could have job searched, but it provided a great point in time to say, "Hey,
it
I'm
did.
gonna go try this." And one of the things and I like what you mentioned as the strengths and how you like to help people because one of the things that I have started to appreciate most about your approach to, professional development for product managers or kind of anybody is that idea of like intentional growth, proactiveness,
Yeah.
which brings me to a tie-in to the fact that this is the start of Q4.
Oh, well,
And you've got some really particular thoughts on what product managers, and again, any professional can do to kind of set ourselves up for success as we round out the end of the year. So tell me more about that.
yeah. Q4 is a really interesting and, dare I say, exciting time, and it's really a moment that happens every year, that product managers can, I feel, really start to separate and distance themselves from the pack. They can start to show initiative and leadership potential and proactive thinking. And the reason I say that, or the way in which I say that, is oftentimes Q4 gets really lost in the shuffle. It gets lost because, summer vacations and then back to school kind of bleeds out the beginning of it. The holidays, knock out usually probably the last month of it.
Half of it.
Yeah, and what ends up happening is you end up having a meh Q4. But I coach and advise all of my clients, and when I was managing product managers, all of them, to hit Q4 ground running. And what I mean by that is immediately engage with your stakeholders, immediately put a plan together. What are the things you want to get done and accomplish in Q4? And the other reason for that is, look, as product managers, we don't do anything, right? We work with all the stakeholders and people who do the things that we need them to do, right? We work with marketing people to develop the marketing plans, and engineers to develop the software and all of those things. And
You
so we
you
need those.
heard the cats.
Yes, we heard the cats, yeah. And we need those resources who are spread thin, as we all are, to want to work on our stuff maybe a little bit more than anybody else's stuff. And so the sooner we engage with them, the sooner we show them
Mm.
what our plans and goals are for Q4 and how we're going to finish the year with a bang, not a thud. And we get them engaged, we get them excited, which means now you've got more productivity from yourself and the people that you rely on. And you're coming into the end of the year, you're knocking out some great goals, and you're setting yourself up for a review cycle. Because in the beginning of the year,
Yes.
everybody sits down and says, well, what kind of year has Michael had? Or what kind of year has so and so had? And inevitably, recency bias, they're going to think most recently, not, it's always hard to think about what you did a year ago.
Yep.
And so you set yourself up for a great Q4 and a great perspective or opinion that people will have of you come performance review time.
Yep. And I would be curious for any of you out there listening. I don't always do this, but I'm going to encourage comments. I would love to know if any of you are product managers or even just professionals in general who do this kind of proactive planning for your career during Q4. Because I agree that sometimes the half of it gets lost in the shuffle of the holidays. But I also think about, the period between mid-September all the way to the end of the year can be an amazing time to do this because everybody else is lost in the shuffle. We've got time to focus on these kinds of things and build momentum before the new year starts instead of when the new year starts.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, most people buy the solution to their New Year's resolution in the third week of January. It takes 3 weeks to build new year momentum. What happens if you've got 3 months of leverage and ramp up time over those people? And one of the things that struck me when Michael first told me about this whole concept of kind of Q4 planning for the following Q1 is that in a way, if you're a product manager, this should hit. It's treating yourself, your career, and your year as a product, planning it, road mapping it, retrospecting it, so that you can take advantage and be even more prepared going into a year-end review, or like Michael said, engaging stakeholders who can be kind of hard to wrangle and all those kinds of things. So it can help. It helps your development just as it helps the product's development too.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the manage your career as a product, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And most people don't do it. So if you do it and you're good at it and you're proactive with it and you're intentional about it, you can find yourself, getting more and more recognition, responsibility, and maybe even some promotion.
And first of what I think will be several shameless plugs, you have a great resource for this. So I'm going to grab the link from you and we'll pop it into a comment so everybody can access the planning tool that you created, right?
Yeah, I created it's a one sheet called the year-end push, and it's basically a one sheet Q4 plan that you can put together. I recommend you spend a few minutes, maybe an hour at the most, putting together and documenting what are the plans and goals you want to get accomplished in Q4. I also include a section in there about how is that going to develop you personally, because that's important, I think, when you get into review cycle, to show your manager that not only did you get things done and deliver outcomes for the business, you also improved as a person professionally. Mm-hmm. And so you can show that you're managing your own development and your own career path. And so I recommend all product managers, again, like I said, spend maybe an hour filling it out, socialize it with their manager first, make sure they're aligned, seeing on the same page, and then use that one page as a tool to go to all your stakeholders, go to the engineers. Here's what we're going to get focused and get done. Got it. Go to the marketing team, go to the sales team, go to all the people you rely on, and just keep pulling out this one page to say, here's what I'm working on. Here's what I'm working on. Repetition burns that message in, and you'll find that those people will start to respond to that.
Well, and I'm going to even add an extra layer here. Imagine if you did this every quarter.
Yeah.
So this could be your own personal career sprint. It's just a 3-month instead of a 3-week. But if you did this every quarter, now you come to your performance review so overly prepared with comprehensive retrospective instead of, like you said, Michael, I can only remember the last 6 months of what the heck I've done around here. And in general, I think it's a really good professional development practice to check in either monthly, have a brag folder, or do something that periodically documents your career progress instead of waiting either waiting for the external trigger of a performance review, or worse, the need to update a resume, because capturing all those outcomes, achievements, and metrics becomes really, really hard the longer in the rear view it gets. So I love this as just a consistent practice you can do periodically throughout the year.
Yeah, and when I was a product leader, I would, when it came time to review cycle, I would ask my team, individuals, the product managers, to sort of send me a "What'd you do last year?" Now, of course, I knew what they did last year. I was managing them, but I want to hear it from them in their words, and they're going to remember things differently than I do, and maybe even more. But you'd be shocked. Some of them came back, and it was like, 4 sentences. I'm like, okay, you did a lot more than the last year. And others came back, and those that came back, that were able to show over the course of the year work and outcomes and progress and growth, always will fare better.
Well, and that's where you're your own best advocate. Even if you have a fantastic manager who is proactive, like somebody like Michael, give yourself that compliment. You are still your own best advocate. And the person who is prepared, proactive, and has 4 pages of "here's what I've done" is going to be perceived as more valuable than somebody who can only come up with 4 sentences. And I think that's really important as we kind of get into a third thing I want to talk about, which is some of the challenges and disruptions we're seeing to the product world today. Again, if any of you out there listening, I'd love to hear what your challenges are. We do have an expert here to help answer them. But Michael, what are you seeing in the product world that is shaking things up?
The biggest thing right now, and it's, you can't look anywhere without seeing it. The biggest thing right now that's shaking up product management is
I
AI.
know what's coming.
It's
AI.
AI.
Everybody
And
just
I
rolled
feel
their
like,
eyes,
oh,
but
oh yeah,
we
AI.
can't get away from it.
But I'll tell you, anecdotal studies I've seen have shown, uptake and adoption by product managers is, depending on the study you look at, anywhere from like 50 to 75% of product managers are already starting to use it, whether it's weekly or daily. And so they're starting, and I don't remember any time in the last 20 plus years that there was something that was picked up and adopted that rapidly.
That brought that, like, with that level of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
So, and it's impacting product managers in really, I think, two ways. The first is, as a product manager, you need to be experimenting with these tools to figure out how you can be better at what you do, how you can be more productive, how you can be more effective. You can turn out requirements documents and strategic recommendations and things like that more quickly than ever
Mhm.
before, and you need to. Now, that doesn't mean the AI is writing everything, but it certainly is maybe your first draft, and then you're going to go through and make some changes and edits to it.
Please make changes and edits, because you will know if you've just directly used the AI
Okay.
output.
Yes. And the second thing is, AI gives us the ability to crunch data and find insights in ways we either never could or took a really long time to do
Yep.
it. So you may have all sorts of user feedback, whether it's directly from customers, whether it's emails or Jira notes from salespeople, whether it's customer call center records, combined with maybe third-party research. You used to have to read that and look at it and try to see where there was something. You can bring all of that together, ask AI to sort of do some analysis, keep querying it, digging into it, and you'll get insights that either you wouldn't have been able to get or would have taken you weeks, now in basically minutes.
Minutes.
So you have to be using it. It's changing the way
Mm.
we do product management. The other impact it's having is, I hear from a lot of product managers, they get an email or a message from the CEO or from their leader or somebody saying, figure out how we put AI into our product.
I was thinking that was the flip side of the coin, right? So it impacts you and as an individual doing the job, but it's in your best interest to understand how it works, because it's going to impact the product itself too.
Correct. So you need to understand what's possible. You need to understand some of the risks and some of the boundaries.
Yep.
So you have to understand a little bit of that, and you also have to understand, um, it, writing requirements for and working on features that are going to incorporate AI into a product are different than not using AI. An example of that, right, is, I mean, when we write software requirements, software is deterministic. We know what it's going to do, or we know what we expect it to do. And if a test case passes or fails, we know what's happening. With AI, it's all probabilistic. We're not entirely sure what it's going to come back with, but we have certain thresholds that we want to make sure it comes back with before we deem it ready for release. So it changes. You know, you have to understand how it works, what you can do. You have to understand things like model drift and context dwindling and all these other things. Again, you don't have to be a full, data scientist, AI engineer, but you have to understand it enough to be able to figure out and incorporate how it's going to work in your product.
Because I'm sitting here going, I didn't know what context dwindling is, but I know what context dwindling is now that I think about it, as I have my own conversations with AI. And I think everything that you said is very applicable to just the general impact of AI on the workforce and professionals and business owners even, is that this is something that isn't going away. You may have rolled your eyes when we brought it up, but guess what? You're stuck with it. And it is a fantastic enablement tool that can help us get more done more quickly. It isn't a replacement though, but it's in your best interest to understand how to leverage it and how to use it, because it's now going to become an expected skill in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's right. And you alluded to it, but you didn't ask the question, which I get a lot, which is AI going to replace product managers? And in the foreseeable future, no. There's far too many soft skills that product managers have to bring to the table in terms of.
Please refer to aforementioned comment about herding cats.
Yes, herding cats, humility, empathy, understanding, context, relationships, all of those things. But what is existential is product managers who don't embrace AI, use it, understand it, learn it, become very adept at it. They will face an existential threat.
That it is right. I agree. Right now, AI will not replace many jobs we fear it will, as long as you put it in your toolkit to remain relevant in an AI, what is going to become an increasingly AI driven workforce.
Correct.
But you can't, I mean, how are you going to engage? How is AI going to engage with stakeholders, right? Or develop some of the more, empathetic aspects of a user story, for instance, right? Those are the human components that will always need to be present in product because humans are the end user. But I also attest that what we used to call soft skills, that I'm going to now call human skills, are going to become more important to hone and refine and bring to work, because that's what we have to pair with the AI. Yeah. EQ is what we bring to what AI gives us is IQ.
I like the idea of calling it human skills, not soft skills.
Yeah, human skills.
I think I'm going to steal that.
Okay, you can steal that. I give it to you. Hashtag humans still matter. I have it all over LinkedIn.
Love it.
Let's make that go viral. How about human skills? For a while, people were there was a push to call them power skills. I'm just going to call them human skills.
Human skills. That's what they are.
Yeah, I think we just coined a term.
I love it.
We're now going to be hashtag famous, even though LinkedIn doesn't like hashtags anymore. What's your number one human skill, everybody? I want to hear it. So this is full of advice. And this is one of the reasons that I always enjoy talking to you, Michael, because there's a practicality with which you approach all of these kind of things without losing the humanism. And so let's give everybody else a little bit more practical advice and some more human skills on kind of what your best 3 tips are on what product leaders or any professional out there can do to kind of improve their career, improve their teams, think forward, all those kinds of things.
So I think this is for product leaders and product managers specifically. Okay. I think much of what I'm about to say will apply to any professional out there. Some of it might be a little bit more specific to product folks. But my 3 pieces of advice are prioritize people, and prioritize people. And so
by the way, I did not know that's what his 3 tips were going to be when we started talking about human skills. So tell me more.
But I'm not just saying it 3 times because it's important. I'm saying it 3 times because there's actually 3 different dimensions to it, I think. Yeah, people and audiences, and you got to think about them. So the first is, if you're a product manager, you care about the customer, the user, because that's who you're building for. That's who you are hoping provide, values what you provide,
Mhm.
and then can drive business to the company. And so you've got to prioritize engaging with customers, engaging with users and prospects. If you're a product manager, find the time for it. Invariably, you'll get busy with other stuff. Nope, prioritize this, because if not, it'll get lost. If
Mhm.
you're a product leader, not just encourage, but insist that your product managers are spending that time out in the field. They will be better for it, and you will be better for it.
And the product will be better for it, because my sense is that, the rapid growth of technology has, I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm just going to use the term leveled off, right? We aren't going to see the rapid progression that we have for the last 15 or 20 years. And because of that, I think that also means that the kind of like product for product's sake or software for software's sake is, we're past it. And now it really does have to have product market fit and a real human audience that you as a product manager have to know.
Yep, agreed. So that's the first, prioritize people.
Okay.
The second, prioritize people, is prioritize your team. I coach product leaders all the time, and there's a few main things product leaders have to do. They've got to set the product strategy and socialize that and drive that. They have to manage up. They have to manage expectations, and they have to demand and insist on the right resources and socialize that strategy to all the executives. And then the third thing they have to do is they've got to build, manage, coach their team as if it's a product. I find that
Say that again. The last part.
build, manage, and coach your team as if it's a product, because as a product leader, that's your new product.
Yes.
Your new product is your team. And product leaders don't deliver great products. Product leaders build great teams. And so, and great teams deliver great products. So, but the problem is the order I listed them in, right? Strategy, managing up, managing your team, is the order I typically see product leaders prioritize. And it's the wrong order.
It needs to be flipped.
It needs to be flipped.
Yeah.
They've got to start with the team. A product leader is only as good as their worst performing product manager.
Oh.
I want to repeat that, because I don't think product leaders realize it. You are only as good as your worst performing product manager. That's how you're being looked at and measured by the rest of your peers. So you should be spending as much time and energy as you can to enable, to strengthen, to level up your team, because that's how you improve and level up yourself.
And I think this is a very important message, because it is counterintuitive to the way at least newer product leaders have always worked. And this is essentially the plight of kind of your first level management or your engineering management, where you are stuck between managing expectations from the top, funneling them down to people below. You're still used to having been a technician. For any of you out there who've read the E-Myth, which many employees don't read, you should, but you're used to being a technician, and now you have to put yourself in a manager seat first. And it takes I think it takes a lot of intention in order to flip those priorities, because it isn't your natural way of working or your habitual way of working in your career thus far, if you're newer to that position.
Yeah, we don't acknowledge the fact that it's a really different role, and it requires different strengths and different muscle and different prioritization and day-to-day activities and things that and more often than not, a product manager that gets promoted to a product leader just kind of keeps doing what they're doing, except now they're also nosing in everybody else's business.
I would say they're also telling their kind of sort of peers what else to do.
Right. And that misses. So that's the second, prioritize people. And then the third, prioritize people, is stakeholders. As again, I mentioned earlier, as product managers, we don't do anything. We sort of work with all the stakeholders to get things done. Stakeholders are a blessing, because they're the ones who bring our product vision to life. But my God, stakeholders can be a curse. And if you can get 98% of your stakeholders, right? 9 out of the 10 important stakeholders are on board, aligned, they're thumbs up, they're driving forward with you, and you kind of forgot about one, and you sort of didn't let that accounting or finance person, they're not as briefed. All they have to do is, they hear about this, they mention to their boss, I don't know what this is. Suddenly it's an escalation to the CEO, everything comes to a grinding halt. And now you've got to deal with all this, backpedaling. Oh, sorry, let me bring you up to speed. And So make sure you know who your stakeholders are, and make sure you are spending a lot of time bringing them along with you, because they can make your lives incredibly helpful or easy, but they can also make your lives incredibly miserable.
People, people, people.
That's
I
it.
love it. I love it. And I think you're totally right that in the context of a product manager, I'm sure some people don't love that term, that like we don't really do anything, but your doing is all people centric, and you've got to have it in the right order.
Yeah.
I'll shameless plug Break a Pencil Consulting for Michael, that if you're having a hard time with any of this, this is the guy to talk to, which cues me up another shameless plug that I know you've got a really cool resource in the works that's rolling out kind of like, again, hot off the presses as we speak, to
Yeah.
help product leaders think about this people component, but also in the context of the AI disruptor. So tell us more about what you've got in the works.
Yeah, I've got a short cohort-based micro course, 3 weeks, focused entirely on AI and its impact on product leaders and a little bit to product managers. And how do you, as a product leader, make sure that you and your team are staying ahead of this AI wave and are being as prepared and equipped to handle it as you possibly can. So we're going to go into a variety of different methodologies and frameworks, but also, since it's cohort based, it's going to be sort of a little bit of lecture, a little bit of lab, working on stuff back at the office, kind of in your place of work, and then a little bit of peer review when we come back and kind of discuss it and work through it together as a cohort. So that's on Maven, my course, and that'll be launching in just a couple weeks.
Yeah, and we will, again, links coming at you in the comments here. So you can all check it out if you want. I'm super excited to see how the Maven interface and the Maven thing works too, because I've got a couple other people doing courses on Maven. So that'll kind of be good feedback. Also, you're going to steal human skills. I'm going to steal the lab idea, because I've got a mastermind kicking off, and I love that idea of calling it a lab instead of like, tactical work day or whatever. So
yeah, that's
there
okay.
you go.
You're stealing
something today.
I stole it from somebody else.
Okay, that's okay. I mean, really, are there any new ideas out there?
No, but I love the idea.
You know the answer to that is no.
Yeah, no, there are none. I love the idea, though, this person had framed, and that's why I stole it, was this idea of like lecture, lab, peer review, right? This is kind of what you do at university, right? This is sort of, this is what I do when I teach at universities is, we have lecture, we have workshops or group work, and then we come back and there's a peer review element to it. And that's a great way of learning new skills, especially as busy professionals.
And now I want to tell you that I hope your AI Maven course has a whole university course theme to it.
The next one. This one didn't, but maybe the next one.
Okay, the next one. You never know. You never know what we're going to come up with. Exactly. Michael, I love this conversation. And again, this is definitely a good deep dive for any of you product professionals out there who are trying to navigate the challenges in the market. It's more competitive, and this is the kind of stuff that can help you set you apart for your next product manager role and leadership growth, which I absolutely love. So we've talked about Maven course, which is linked. We've talked about the Q4 proactive planner, which is linked. How else, Michael, can people find you, learn about Break a Pencil Consulting, and follow along with your journey in addition to here on LinkedIn?
You can go to my website, www, which I don't think you need anymore, .breakapencil.com. So it's breakapencil.com. And there is all the services I offer, all the resources.
And there's Taco's Tail.
And there's Taco's Tail. Resources, services. You can reach out to me, contact me through there. You can set up time with me through there. So everything about me is on breakapencil.com.
Apparently, Taco is going to now make weekly appearances on No More Mondays because he was here last week to visit with Dan. Taco only comes and visits me, by the way, so you all know out there. Taco, I am the secondary human. I'm Taco's secondary human. I'm Steve's primary human. But Taco only comes and visits me when Jim is not here. So you've been blessed with his presence. Aren't cats supposed to be? Isn't a cat across your path? Good luck for the day. Break a pencil. Good luck.
Break a pencil.
I love it. So I hope all of you out there will check out Michael's course and free resources. Visit breakapencil consulting.com with a www or without.
No consulting. Just
no consulting. Just Break a Pencil. Come on, Angie, get your info right. You can also check it out in the comments, or if you're listening in podcast land, you can grab the details at nomoremondays.com. .info. I have loved this conversation. I always love the insights that you bring, Michael. So I appreciate you joining and sharing with your audience and mine.
Loved it. Thank you very much for having me.
I want to remind everyone out there that we come to you live every Monday morning with a fresh No More Mondays podcast to help kick off your week in style. And if you can't catch us live, it does upload to the podcast feeds on Monday afternoons. So you have never-ending ways to replay Michael and I's conversation and consume the inspiration that I hope you get from No More Mondays. Thank you all for joining me today, and I will see you next week for another edition of No More Mondays Live. Bye, everybody.
Bye.